Hi guys, hope you're well. Been a while since I've done a video. I'm sure a lot of you Tamiya collectors and enthusiasts out there know what this is. This is a Tamiya Bruiser, 1985 I believe. Now, when I was a youngster, that's many years ago, these were so expensive. I think they was probably like £450. Can you imagine that in the 80s, like £450, £500 for a model car? Well, if you can see the quality of this car, if you're looking at it there. I bought it off eBay. I mean, normally they're a ridiculous price because this is the original. It's not a re-release, and normally they're like a ridiculous price on there. But I found one. I think it was £400, and it all looked like it was all there, untouched. That's how I like them. And I thought to myself, I'm going to give that a go. I've had them before. I've had the 3-speed Toyota and I've had the 3-speed Blazing Blazer. Now, they come with a 540 motor. This one's got a 750, I believe, so it's got a lot more torque. It's a pretty heavy beast, you know, but I'm just going to give you a quick sort of run round it and what I've done to it to try and improve it a little bit, because I don't think it had hardly been used. It had been locked. The person who I bought it off had locked it into like third gear. I'd never used the gearbox, you know, which is I find really strange because the gearbox is like the heart of the car, and it's it never gets old changing gear, you know, moving along. And like we all had, I put it on a blood transmitter, but we all had this like. Can you see the gate on there? That's it. Now, look, when you got these, I think you got an ACOM's 4-channel radio with it, and I think Futaba actually done a 4-channel, and it was on 27 meg. I believe there was a 40 meg one back, you know, in the old days, but I put it on this radio. I'll tell you why a bit later on, but you can improve the car, like I would say, like 75% by putting it on a decent radio. I know this one's a Spectrum, and I'm not a fan of Spectrum, but it's sort of, I've got 2 of them I've had laying around for ages, and I never use them for anything decent. They're only used for my boat, couple of boats, and if I've got a good boat, I use them on my Futaba radio. So, you know, it's sitting around doing nothing, so I've decided to use it. And then you've got throttle curves, you've got expo, everything to make this car run better. But let's just have I'll just switch it on, and we'll have a little run through the gears. Hopefully it's going to work. Now, these came with, originally, they had a mechanical speed controller, a 3-speed controller, and the controller had like resistors on it, which got red hot and they were smoking and all stuff like that. You know, I don't know how the mechanical ESC actually survived, because I had one in a Blazer with a smaller motor, and the smell was like you're on the underground with electricity burning. But yeah, it weren't good. So for the start, I mean, I kept it all original, but I've changed the mechanical ESC or speed controller for an electronic ESC. It's only a hobby wing brush one, but they're pretty good. So you've got like 3 forward speeds, you've got 3 rear, you know, backward speeds if you want to be brave enough. And I'm surprised, when you kick it into like top gear, it's got a real sort of like kick to it, and it goes well. Now these cars have got like a one-way front wheel on them, so they only drive, when you put this in low gear, there's another little shaft on the other side, which I shall show you later. Another little shaft over there, so when it's in 4-wheel drive, it will drive all 4 wheels. And then when you go into 2nd and 3rd, it only runs the rear wheels. So it becomes 2-wheel drive, 1st gear, 4-wheel drive. Now, being one-way front wheels as well, it's a little bit hairy when you want to brake, because all you're doing is braking on the back wheels. So you've got to be really careful with the brake. And that's where the radio comes in, because you can mess around with, I've got it on a helicopter menu, so you can mess around with the throttle curve, and you can just ease the brakes off slightly, you know, and then have full brakes right at the end. It's the same with the gearbox. What I've got is on the the shift for the gearbox is actually on the rudder on here. So it's on the rudder. So I've got a slight bit of expo on the rudder around the middle point, so you can't sort of ram them in. It just takes the edge off of the gear change. Also, on the throttle curve, I've got it coming down to halfway, which will be the neutral point there. And just before there, I've got it sort of slowing down on the helicopter throttle curve. So that sort of slows the gearbox down. So when you change gear, it's not revving, because these don't like to be sort of revving flat out and then smashed into like second gear. You've got to be really careful with them so you don't damage the gearbox. Now, what you do is you come down, and as you get to the end, you just gently push it across like that and then pull it into second gear, and the same with third. And the same with the down changes. You've really got to slow the gearbox down slightly to get it to change gear while you're moving along. But with the expo and the endpoint adjustment and all that kind of thing you get on a radio, I mean, my other ones I had on like a Spectrum, I think it was a 5 Spectrum 5 radio, and it does nothing. You can't do anything with it. But when you've got one of these, so you can make a lot of difference, especially with the steering as well, because the steering is so sort of pointy and so sensitive. You only really need a little bit of steering on it to work. And saying that, there's a hell of a lot of slop, which I'll talk about later, which you can get rid of on the truck. So that's the steering with like the rates on. With the rates off, you can get a lot more, and it's also got expo around the centre. So when you're moving that, it just takes the edge off of that steering, mate. Otherwise, when you're in top gear, to try and keep it going a straight line, it's a bit of a mission. And it's not just that; it's an actual slop in the steerbox, you know, in the steering mechanism itself, because it's got so many rods and this, that, and the other in it. But let's just spin it up. So we're going to first gear now. So it's driving the front wheels. And now we'll go over to second gear. So those front wheels will stop. You can see the front wheel slowing down. And then you go over to third gear. Just let it ease down a bit. Second gear. And back into front wheel driving, into four wheel drive. So that's the basic travel, and you can do that while you're going along, as long as you're careful and not too aggressive with the controls. And so with this radio as well, with all the expo and all the adjustments on it, you can fine tune it. You know, I'm still doing it now, and I've got the best ever can go up and down the road. It's absolutely beautiful. So let's just turn this off. Now, there's a slop. That is a slop in the steering, which is the rods, and it's also, I shall show you, right, let's put these wheels down. Right, if you can see that bell crank in there, it actually twists. And I'm going to see if I can make an alley one. I'll make it look exactly the same. Because what happens is that twists and you get all this slop. Can you see it moving? I've made a new bush for it and God knows what else, but it still moves because the steering comes out from there, it goes onto there, and then, as you can see, or we can't see, it goes across to the other wheel, but it's fed from that side. It's fed from that side and goes across. So you've got like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 linkages, and they're all ball joints, so they've all got a slight little bit of play in them, even though they're brand new. This is the drive shaft to the front that only comes in bottom gear. So this comes in bottom gear and drives the front wheels. This is all the radio box. You've got your 2 drive shafts. I ball raced the axles. You can buy, I think they're 5x10 by 4mm wide. So you can ball race that, and I've ball raced the gearbox, which is quite a mission. Well, I'll tell you about that in a minute. Now, obviously I've been doing this up. Let's turn my radio off. When I got this, it was in fairly good condition. Just run, it had not been touched or anything, you know, and that's how I like it. So all I've done, like Scotch-Brite on all the metal parts, and Loctite. Oh my god, it has. I mean, in the manual, all these screws says put Loctite on them, you know. But I mean, not half a bottle of Loctite like people did back in the day, and I had to heat a lot of them up with my little blow lamp to get them apart. There's a real mission, but I've managed to use all the original screws. I've got the original shocks. Everything I've left on it, and they've all cleaned up nice. The white's a little bit yellowy, you know, which you expect. Only 2 servos in the box, so I've got it on 2.4. It's just a little lemon receiver in there, 2.4 DSM2. And I've been up and down the road with it, and it's absolutely beautiful. And a good thing with the Bruiser as well is that the suspension actually does work. You know, it's got a little bit of articulation on that, and when you're going along, even if I can show the front, even the front's nice as well. Look. Now, when you had the Toyota and you had the Blazer, you could stand on it, and the springs wouldn't move. You know, it was just like rock solid, and it looked so bad going along. It used to hop along the road and just look like grass, or if you was off road, it was just no suspension. But seeing this one come out a few years later, Tamiya had done their homework, and I realised that I've got to go softer springs, which they did, and the dampers. These dampers should have like a little a gator. Each one has a gator on. That mine are all perished, so you know, I'm looking around to try and buy some. But even the re-release stuff is really hard to buy, and I don't like. I've got a. Is it a 408 PG or something? I've got the clone with a toy engine in it, which is okay. It's got metal diffs and that, but the shocks are really bad. So I thought I'd keep it. I've made new shafts for them because they were like a little bit rusty. But I've got to find the gators for them. I mean, it doesn't really matter, you know. It's not as though I'm going to be ploughing through fields of mud and water like you see on the telly. But talking of the clone one, the tyres. Now the tyres I've got with it, you wouldn't think there's anything wrong with them, would you? They look like they've hardly been used. And I don't think the truck's been used either. And you know, I thought that's great, but they're really hard. And I said to the bloke, you know, are they okay? But if you notice, they are starting to perish. See a crack there? I've got some that are really bad. This is not too bad. Is the other side going? Yeah, look. See? And when they start doing that, there's nothing you can do with them. So, being they're rock hard as well, these are clone wheels. What I did was I bought a set of clone wheels and tyres. And I've managed to fit, another mission, I've managed to fit the clone tyres because they're lovely and soft, you know, beautiful tyre. It runs perfect. And I've managed to get them onto the original Bruiser rims, because if you look at them, they're different. They've got like a hubcap in the middle, whereas the Bruiser ones have got the nuts on. I mean, what holds the wheels on is like 3 screws. All that's doing is holding a hub on, which I could show you a bit later. So, that's, oh, and one other bit. These little, you see these little oil plugs here? Now that's from the re-release Bruiser, because when I went to try and take them out, it just fell apart and all the rubber fell inside the gearbox, which was nice. So what I decided to do was take the gearbox apart. Yeah, it is a bit scary, but it's not so bad if you've got one of these. Now, I've had this for a long while. It's like the holy grail of this 3-speed gearbox. And in there, they tell you what bearings you need, how many. Let's see, I'll get onto another page. It's actually got a slipper as well. That is a slipper. Really weird kind of slipper. You can't adjust it. But this is like when you start stripping the gearbox down. So that's the front cover. And then you've got, it goes through to start with the gears. All all these cases come apart and they're all numbered. And if you can see, they've got like those little brass or bronze flange bearings. You need 8 of those bearings. But the problem is, these ones are like 4mm wide, or 3mm I believe they are. And the other bearings you can buy in ball races are only 2.5. So you have to make shims up and spacers, which I did. I made up loads of shim spacers and whatever to get the bearings the right width, else the gearbox won't work. So as you go on with it, you get a lot more. I mean, look, it's just quite complicated, but not too bad if you sit down. I mean, I think if you didn't have this book, it might become, find it a bit difficult. But the hardest thing really is you've got to get this all back together, and you have to kind of, all the shifters and like the gear change, you can see the rail there with the shifters on, all those you have to sort of build up as one part, and you have to sort of slide it in like a cassette. Well, it's not like rocket science, but you can see some of them bearings have got like the knurling on them, the straight knurl, and they're the ones you change with like 5 by 10 by 4mm wide. And you can see the little flange ones, which you get the ball races, and you have to make up some shims to shim them out to the right length. But you have a few goes putting all that in, but you get there in the end, and it makes for an absolutely smooth gearbox. This is like whisper quiet when it's running along, and the gear change is so much better. And you just need a little bit of oil I put in them. I put 3-in-1 oil in it. I bought a 3-in-1 spray oil, but that's too thin. It's almost like WD-40. I don't know what happened to 3-in-1, but there's no seal in the back of the gearbox where the drive goes to the back wheel, and it starts to leak out of there. So each one of them segments of the gearbox are silicon together. So hopefully, the only little bit of leaks is around the rear bearing, but it's no big deal. But it should stop the dirt from getting into it. So that's basically what I've done to the truck. There's one other thing I did, because I'll take this front wheel off and I'll show you the hub. If I can find the right screwdriver. As usual, I'm really prepared for this. I believe is it that one? Yeah, that's close. I'll make sure I find the right screw. Right, so they're not held by that nut in the middle. I'll just show you how this actually works. The clone is got the same sort of setup, but it's a bit time consuming. Okay, so this is the hub. Now, the actual steering kingpins, if I can bring them up, if you can see them, it's just metal. This is only like pot metal, isn't it? It's just pot metal, and it's held in with a clamp. On the other side, they've got other little screws, little plates and 2 screws that go over them, and that is your kingpin. So, there's a lot of slop in them. And once you put these big wheels on, look, you get a lot of slop. But it did have a lot more slop in them, to be honest with you, when I first started. But what these have got, if you can look at the back of them, they've got like a massive ball race in there. But that just comes out of there, and it run with 0.5 mil clearance out to the back. So the only thing that supported that hub was that bearing there. So what I made is took the hub off, and I made a 0.25 bronze bearing to slide in there, and that's taken all that play out of that. A little bit of Loctite or bearing fit on that bearing there. It's really easy. Make a little thin bush, and that really supports that, so you don't get all the play on that. So that is what I've done there. So we'll leave that for now, because it's a pain putting them wheels on and off. what I've been doing is the bodywork had quite a bit of damage on it. Let's move this out of the way for now. Okay. This is the cab, which took me hours and hours and hours and hours, and even more hours to get the paint off. It was just, it was horrendous. I suppose it was painted all them years ago, and you know, we all talk about it. Our paints and glues and everything else has changed over the years. You know, they make it all safe, but it don't work. You know, well, whoever painted this years ago, God knows what paint they used, but I had tried everything: brake fluids, really hard cleaner. I forget the name of it now, but everything I tried. Glow fill, no, nothing would touch it. And when you know, you can rub it down with wet and dry or sandpaper, but you start losing the detail. You know, like the indicators, you start rubbing it the side, and this, like you've got door handles and stuff like that, you start losing the detail on that. So what I found is nail varnish remover. And that's a bit harsh, but I tried pure acetone and it melted the plastic. But obviously, I would say that a nail varnish remover is a little bit more, it's a little bit more gentle, for lack of a better word. And I managed to, you know, use it and get these things round. But I would say, overall, it took me like a week with little scalpels, because all the door shuts were full up with paint. There must have been like half a gallon of paint on it. I'm trying to keep this little four-wheel drive, you know, emblems on them and all that. So this is in base coat at the moment. And I had the colour matched up by cars to the original X4. Now I believe they've done the Ford Ranger in the X4, and that is the colour of the X4. I've got some decals coming from line. Again, you think you can find some re-release decals? No, not in this country. I've been everywhere looking for them, all sold out. So I've got some coming from Japan. So I'm going to leave this for a little while. I'll show you. I've just painted the rear cab this afternoon. I've just painted the white on it. Now, you can tell this is like a Bruiser because it's all made in one piece. You know, the cab and everything, all the re-releases, the cab is like a separate bit screwed on, but this is all like one part. So, shall I take my, I've already sprayed the blue on this, so I like to mask it up again to spray the white now. What do you reckon? Do you reckon it's come out okay, or, you know, it's not my favourite job painting, but it is in the prep work. It's not the painting itself, it's the bloody prep work of like masking it up, whether it's going to be a clean line or whether it's going to, you know, where it's going to be run. I've learnt not to put the paint on too thick. I mean, this is all done in base coat. The white, the blue, everything is in base coat. So I'm hoping that it's not run or gone round my masking tape. I started off with very thin line tape, and then I've added the masking tape around the outside. And so I'm hoping when I get the decals on, give it one coat of clear coat, and it should look really nice. You know, but do you think you could run this from down the road with the body on? Oh. You know, it's taken me like a week to get the paint off of both of these bits, and this was really damaged. This I'll talk about that in a minute. But it's a really good colour match. The biggest problem I had, and I never thought I was going to get it, you know, repaired as good as I did. Well, this, what have we got now? Oh, I didn't want to leak that paint through there, did I? Okay, now let's take the, can you see the blue? This is a fine line tape, which I use a lot. you can't use masking tape to get a clean edge because it's quite rough, but what I do, well, that don't look too bad, that line, does it? I use, if you can see the white tape there, that is Tamiya fine line, and then I use the wider fine line to get a better finish, you know, better edge. But this is what takes the time. You know, you can't do paintwork. You know, if you want to do it properly, you've got to spend some time on it, and it's like hours and hours. But it's looking good. If I can get this bit off. I started playing the guitar again, so I've had to chop all my fingernails down. Even though I've got like really bad arthritis, I'm having another go. Anyway, now that looks pretty sharp, that line. I'm quite happy with that. What's the one like in the bottom? Oh yeah. Cool, that is come out really nice. That's just, there's bound to be a mark on it somewhere. I'm never that lucky. Never. There's always something, you know. Well, that seems like that's... Well, that don't look bad. I'll get off. Okay, so there you are, an unmasking of a rear Bruiser bed. Now the damage on this, I'll just get all this tape off my fingers. The damage on this was along here. It had like a massive V right up to there, as though it had backed into something fast, and it has broken right through there. And whether it had been stored like that for all these years, you know, I don't know. But it actually, I just couldn't sort of push it out. It's also, it damaged the bed. I don't know if you can see, but it's slightly bending down, because as it's pressed that in, it's bent the back down. So what I had to do was, I made up like a piece of wood to go from there to there, and I gently heated it up. You know, just with a heat gun, not too hot, and I left it in overnight, but when I pulled it out, it still kind of had that V in there, so I kept trying it, and what I did in the end was, I've used some of that EMA glue. I don't know if you've seen it for resin bodies. It's like water, but it melts the two halves together. So what I did, I put even more wood to push that out as far as I could, heated it up till it was straight. And then I put the EMA glue, because it was broken right down here, through the toy and emblem, right through there. And I glued it while it was all in one piece. And then next morning I come down, and I took the wood out, and it looked like that. Obviously I've had to fill it. There's some stopper in there and some filler, not too much. There's a lot of little broken pieces. This broke along here, but that glue just does it perfectly. You know, you have to hold it for a little while, but it's fantastic stuff. So I'm really pleased with that. That has got a little crisp line. I was really worried of doing that. I don't know whether to paint the bed black. I'm not sure, but obviously this should look like. So that should look like that. Now on the, let's get my tea, I'm getting sore throat. Here on my, on the clone, this was chrome, a horrible looking thing. But I've got to paint these windows, I've got to be black. I'm talking of windows. This is what I've got with it. It's very poor, it's broken down there. It's very scratched up, like it's had something leaning on it, or someone's cleaned it with like something that shouldn't. So again, I'm trying to find one of these. Now you think that'd be quite easy, wouldn't you? Everywhere seems to be sold out of them. There must be lots of people doing what I'm doing, or I don't know. But I managed to get one for my old Toyota years ago. But you know, I'll keep looking, I'll find one. No doubt pay through the nose for it, like I do everything else. I've got the rear window, which I believe I've got to paint silver. a bit brighter silver than that, louvered. The bumpers I had to heat up and straighten them because they was a little bit bent, but you know, they're alright, but they're very yellow, so I might go over them with a 2-pack paint, clean them up and rough them all up, and then try and do them with this plastic primer you get now. It's like clear, very strange sort of primer, but it seems to work very well. It's like sticks on. You think you spray it and you think there's nothing on there, but I don't know what it is. It's like a silvery grey sort of colour. But I'm going to rough all them up, then I'm going to paint them. I mean, someone's already done these, but that looks like it's just like hand paint enamel or something. But they don't look bad, really. They've been brushed. But once again, no doubt I've got to get all that off, because if I put paint over enamel, it's just going to react and bubble up. The back one, I think this was probably, I've heated it up and I got it out as best I can. I think this was probably involved in a crash on the back when it actually broke the rear bed. But yeah, I can do something with that. And the screws, you know, the screws haven't even gone rusty. Look at them. It's amazing. It must have been kept somewhere like really warm and you know, not a lot of trouble. So there it is with my Bruiser. Will I keep it or sell it? I'm selling so much at the moment. It's untrue. I'm kind of like enjoying restoring them to the best of my ability and making them better than they were in the first place. And then where I used to put them on the shelf, you know, and they used to collect dust, I decided to not make a business out of it, but make some money out of like restoring them, which I love. And then if someone offers me the right amount of money, then I shall move it on. But I used to keep them all, you know, and you get so many, you know, collecting dust on your shelf, and you know, after a little while you get bored with them, you want to try something else. So you're probably over in the corner there. I've got my driver figure, which I don't think is the right one. I hope someone can tell me different. I think it should never crash helmet on. I think it should be, I think it should just be like a, not that head on it. It should be like a guy with just sort of a terrible haircut. Right. Oh, that's the grill. I haven't painted that. See, it's the wrong colour, blue. I'm going to redo that. I don't really know what colour the grill was, whether it was black or not. I've not really had a look. But obviously I'm going to try and make the lights work and see if I can do something with it. I'm going to try and use the high lift rear lights. So I've got reversing lights, headlights and indicators and stuff like that, because the truck really comes alive with that. I took my, I've got a white Toyota with a twin cylinder Semto engine in it. I took that out over Christmas and it was dark. And it's got brake lights, reverse lights and everything like that. And it's not quick, but it makes a nice lot of smoke. It's got a nice sound. And when you drive away from you and you brake and the lights come on and then you stick it in reverse and the reverse light comes on, it's like fantastic. Never gets old. It's just a fantastic little thing. I need to do another video on that because I've changed a lot on it. I'm changing the twin exhaust to a single exhaust because the twin one, it keeps leaking and it's giving me so much grief that I'm going to put it back. And I think I've tried to make it so quiet that it's lost its performance a little bit, you know. I know it's a truck, but I like to have a little bit more seat. Now the other thing you can see in the corner over there, which I'm not really happy with, is my V8 engine by a £1,500 doorstop. So I've got it all together again. So let's just zoom in a bit. I've got it all together again. And I've got, this time on the build, I mean, this is what I like. This is the Sterling kit, look. Now, look at that O-ring. That's a new one I put in there, look, and it split straight away. It's only nipped down, it's only a Bruiser, but anyway, I don't know if you can see, let's zoom in a bit more. I've got copper head gaskets in it now, can you see? See how thick they are? So we've got copper head gaskets, obviously O-ring, split. But what Tyne did, or not Tyne, Engine DIY Sterling Kit, I can't remember now, all the same. I think it was Sterling Kit. What I've done now, let's just get this back in focus if I can. They sent me new piston rings, new head gaskets, copper ones, not the asbestos ones, all the new green seals, and what I've done with the pickup, it was leaking a hell of a lot of oil out of here, and they give you a really flimsy sort of gasket that goes in there, so I've managed to find an O-ring which fits on there really nice. Why Tyne can't do things like this, or Sterling Kit? Why couldn't they do it? Why do they put, you know, like a piece of, like, it's like, I don't know what it is, it's like a piece of PTFE, and as soon as you do it up, it just squashes and falls to bits. Very similar to the carburetor gaskets. Now, if you take that carburetor off once, all the gaskets are destroyed, because they're like a thin, again, PTFE film. So when you take the carburetor off, you've got to find new gaskets. And you know what, like Sterling Kit Engine DIY, like you order them and it takes bloody ages. I mean, it's a Chinese holiday now, so I've given up for a while now with this. You know, I want new gaskets. I'm not putting it on with the old gaskets. I've not put the plugs back in it yet. You know, I kind of lost the enthusiasm with it because it's not going to do what I want it to do. When I bought this engine, I thought it was going to be like, you know, with an oil pump and water pump like that, I thought it was going to be like really good. But the second time I took it apart, I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, well, the main bearings and the big end bearings are not pressure oil fed. The oil actually goes down the middle here, and it comes from the camshaft, it drips down on the camshaft, and then it drips down onto the main bearings and the main bearings. Now, you know, it's just splash fed with oil, it's not pressurised, so I don't really think that it's going to be man enough to put in a boat, you know, and roll around the lake, which is such a shame. I really don't know what I'm going to do with it, you know, to be honest. I've not started it up because, you know, I can't be bothered with it. But it's just sitting there. It's all, the other thing I've changed, well, all the screws. If you build one of these, don't use any of their screws. You've got to put your own ones in. I mean, I was rebuilding it, and I broke the main cap, one of them on the conrod, the main cap, little 2mm screw, and I nipped it up and it snapped the head off. Now, that's a bit of a problem, isn't it? So I had to try and drill it out, which lucky enough I managed to do with a tiny little drill and my Dremel. So what I did is I bought a complete set of screws for the whole engine. And you have to turn the heads down. For the ones that fit in here, you have to turn all the heads down because they're not the standard size screw. But it's better doing that. I think these screws, you can use them once and the second time they just snap. So I got away from that disaster and I put it together, and I just can't be bothered to run it up. I've lost a screw out of the... I've made one up, got a little screw in there. I lost the proper one. That's not the right screw. I've got to make another one. But, you know, seeing it's not going to do what I want it to do, I've kind of just lost my interest in it, and I don't know what I can do with it. It all looks nice and everything, and I've made these other mounts to keep it straight, but I've got to make brackets on there. Well, I've not even got any enthusiasm to actually make the brackets up. You know, I'll soon be getting on with, you know, things like this, which do what they say they're going to do. So, you know, I don't know, maybe you could put it in a car or something like that. but it's not, you know, I've got a boat now that I've cut about to put this in, and then they say they can't run the engine at an angle, they can't do this, you can't do that, you know, so really all it does is sit on a desktop. Oh yeah, and the other thing which I absolutely knew would be a problem is the electronic ignition. Now I've got another one of these engines, not a V8, but I've got a little spark. I think you've seen it in my, it's on my video channel. I've got a little spark ignition, MB12 I think it is, about 1.5cc. And as soon as I started that up, I lost all my radio. And looking at Johnny Q's video, exactly the same thing. He starts this up, and you got no radio. You know, as I just knew that would happen. So you can't put anything RC anyway, because it's not going to work. Everyone says 2.4, it won't harm it, but it does. I've been there, trust me. So whether someone can come up with a new ignition for this, I don't know. Because in the boat, I had to put RXL aeroplane ignition, you know, something like that. But anyway, I can see this video's going on a bit long. Sorry about that, guys. But I just thought I'll keep up spec for what I'm doing. I've got another project on the go, which I'll do another vid on. Something what I thought was going to be really easy and cheap to, let's say, to restore and be worth a fair bit of money, has turned out to be the exact opposite. I can't get parts. They're going to cost me the earth, and really I shouldn't have done it. But there's no going back now. I've got to restore it. And, that's my heater just gone. And I've got another one on the way to do after that. So, and I've got the DWA to do and the Riviera boat. So I've got quite a lot to do for the last, next 3 months. But keep tuned, guys, because I think this Hilux is going to come up really nice. And I don't know what to do with this doorstep. I'll just leave it on the shelf. So that's it, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.